Welcome to my channel. Every time new criminal case, let's start.
With murder and the death of a 2-year-old girl.
And they cry.
This injury doesn't just appear out of nowhere.
Do you know that accidents happen all the time?
I do.
Justice for fallen. Never forget what they did. Justice for fallen.
29-year-old mother of two, Kirsty Flood, began babysitting 2-year-old Fallon Lynn Fridley in August of 2020. This went on for 4 months, 3 days a week, without incident. But on December 9th, the nightmare began when Fallon was found unresponsive in Kirsty's care before being rushed to the hospital. Various injuries on the toddler's body led to an investigation that would send shockwaves through the local community. Crying voices laced with rage screamed in unison, "Justice for Fallon."
I tried to call and text Kirsty several times, and calls were going straight to voicemail.
This is the disturbing truth.
He said, "Should we just go get her?" And I said, "No, she'll be fine." I regret that now every day.
On Wednesday, December 9th of 2020, just 16 miles from Atlanta, Georgia, in a town called Sandy Springs, a typical day began for Kristen Fridley, or Chris, and her 2-year-old daughter, Fallon. The toddler was woken up at 6 a.m., dressed and given her morning snack, along with a cup of almond milk. Kristen told her daughter that she loved her, and received the usual sweet reply of,
"I love her. You sweetheart."
before Fallon and her stepfather Cameron Gant left the house. Cameron would drop Fallon off at the babysitter's house at around 6:30 a.m. before heading on to work. Chris worked as a veterinary technician for an animal rescue organization while Cameron was a landscaper. When Fallon's daycare closed during COVID, Chris's friend of about 5 years, Kirsty Flood, would look after the little girl while the couple worked. In many ways, it would have seemed like the ideal situation. Kirsty was a close, long-term friend. So close, in fact, that years prior, she helped Chris come out of a struggle with addiction. Kirsty was seemingly worthy of the trust bestowed on her, especially considering the history she and Chris shared. And even more especially after 4 months of constant reliability in her care. Chris said herself that Fallon seemed so happy in Kirsty's care that some days when they would come to pick her up, she didn't even want to leave.
Hey, Fallon, come here. High five.
High five! You're so funny.
I love you. High five.
Flood had 2 children herself, an 8-month-old and a 3-year-old daughter named Harper. Fallon and the 3-year-old were best friends. Everything seemed like the perfect setup. While Chris was at work on December 9th, she received a text around 1:30 p.m. from Kirsty, asking if Fallon could stay the night at her house. In 4 months of babysitting, Fallon had never stayed overnight at Kirsty's, but Chris had no reason to suspect anything was off with the request. After all, 2-year-old Fallon and 3-year-old Harper were best friends. If anything, it just looked like a sleepover in good company, with familiar, trustworthy people. People who had been there when Chris herself was struggling. What harm could it do? Chris called Kirsty when she got off work at around 4:30 p.m., but got no answer. When she texted Kirsty asking how Fallon was doing, Kirsty responded saying that Fallon was fine, but they were all at the park and her phone was about to die. While odd, it didn't send off any immediate red flags. Later, Chris tried to call and text Kirsty several times, but all those calls went straight to voicemail. Stepfather Cameron was starting to feel uneasy at this point and even suggested that perhaps they should just go pick Fallon up. But still, Chris thought there was no major cause for concern because Kirsty was someone she trusted and even looked up to.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Fallon. Happy birthday to you. Yay!
Blow the candle! Blow it! Blow it!
Blow it!
At around 6:30 p.m., Kirsty finally messages Chris to say that everyone is home and safe. Chris replies with no problem and asks if she can FaceTime Fallon. Kirsty tells Chris to give her an hour to charge her phone first. Then an hour later, Kirsty FaceTimes Chris from a very dim-lit room where Fallon appears to be propped up on the bed. Kirsty explains to Chris that Fallon has just woken up from a nap. Chris said the phone was roughly 5 feet from her daughter, and while she didn't notice anything visibly off in the dim room, Fallon was not responding to her mother. This was out of character according to Chris and Cameron. Then when Chris asked Fallon if she wanted to talk to Daddy and passed the phone to Cameron, the call suddenly ended. Cameron again suggested going to pick Fallon up, but again, Chris declined, a decision she regrets to this day. A couple of hours later, at around 9:20 p.m., Chris receives a crying phone call from a hysterical Kirsty Flood, telling her that she needs to come to Kirsty's apartment immediately. She claimed Fallon had hit her head on a slide and wasn't moving. Paramedics were already on the scene working on the little girl at this time. An officer got on the phone and asked if Chris and Cameron could meet them at the hospital. Next, Chris Fridley found herself facing a parent's worst fear. She was standing in a room at Children's Healthcare of Atlanta with Cameron and her mother. They were in there for what felt like hours. It was a small private room, the kind one might expect to see in an emergency department. This was the kind of room that no one wants to be in. The kind of room with walls that rarely echo good news. Chris demanded to know what was going on and begged to see her daughter, but her pleas were denied. Fallon was alive, and the doctors were running tests and doing everything they could to stabilize the 2-year-old, a 2-year-old whose mother was getting angry. Chris couldn't understand why she couldn't be beside the angel she created, but looking back, she now assumes that she too may have been initially suspected, and what the world now knows was a horrific case of child abuse. The doctor came into the room randomly with updates too vague to conclude anything inherently negative or positive from, but one thing stood out to Fallon's mother. A question he asked in repetition.
What happened to your daughter? What happened to your daughter?
Chris was distraught, confused, maybe even offended at the audacity. Was she getting blamed for something? What exactly had happened to her daughter? She had no idea.
I was asking to see Fallon. They said not yet, we're working on her, and they wouldn't let me see her.
The only information she'd been given was that her daughter had fallen off a slide and hit her head. But the doctor explained that Fallon's injuries were not conducive to playground injuries. In fact, he'd never seen a child recover from damages as severe as those he'd seen on the 2-year-old's body. Simply put, Fallon would need nothing short of a miracle to survive.
Does your daughter have any health conditions?
The doctor asked a now hysterical Chris. But apart from a mild heart murmur that had seemingly mended itself by the child's 2-year checkup, the answer was no, she didn't. Not that anyone was aware of, anyway. But it was clear that Fallon's injuries were nothing to do with a heart murmur. The doctor left the room again. In that moment, a calmness washed over Chris. It was as if a part of her brain shut off. Unfortunately for the family of Fallon Fridley, what Chris refers to as a sweet glaze of denial was nothing more than the calm before the storm. A few moments later, an older man entered the room and introduced himself as the chaplain. But Chris didn't want to see a chaplain. Her daughter was going to be fine. She was offended by his presence because it alluded to a tragedy that she believed was not going to occur. The doctor said himself a miracle could save Fallon, and in her mother's mind, that's exactly what was going to happen. That's what had to happen. When the family was moved to the PICU waiting room, they thought they were finally going to get to see their little girl.
The doctor came in and said we have her stable, but critical.
So Chris and Cameron were relieved, and seeing as the PICU room had a bed in it, they began to discuss what they needed from home in order to stay overnight. But the problem was, when they were told the words stable but critical, they only heard the word stable. A new female doctor greeted them in the PICU room to discuss Fallon's condition and have the family sign off on some medical procedures. One of these procedures involved inserting a catheter into the child's leg. On the form it read, 90% chance of recovery. But the doctor's expression indicated that sadly, this was not the case for Fallon. 90% was only relative to the success of the procedure itself, not the little girl's chance of survival. Fallon had immense internal bleeding, zero brain activity, and her heart was only working because of the medication she was being given. If it wasn't for medical intervention, the 2-year-old wouldn't be breathing. But as far as Chris was concerned, a miracle could still occur. Her daughter wasn't dead if her heart was still beating. No matter what they told her, there was still hope. If Fallon was alive, she could pull through. But as much as Kristen Fridley couldn't accept the information she was given, she was about to have to face the truth of the matter. As a cold blue was called to the doctor that stood before her, Chris's life would forever change with 5 simple words. Her heart stopped beating again. After the family was asked to follow the doctor out of the room and down the hall, they were led into another room where they finally got to see their baby girl. But it wasn't how any parent should ever have to see their child. It was a total nightmare. The family watched in horror as so many doctors tried to keep Fallon alive. Chest compression after chest compression after chest compression. I can't imagine the trauma that a parent would face witnessing something like that. The doctor informed the family that they would have to make the call soon. If they didn't, they'd only be doing more harm than good. Chris began to scream and beg for them to save her daughter's life. She said her legs gave out and she almost hit the floor, but someone caught her. She was hysterical, as anyone would be. When you have a 2-year-old, your life is in that child. You live your life knowing that every step you take leads to the protection and safety of that soul you created. You would never concede, you would never give up on them. It just isn't possible. But while Kristen screamed for God to take her instead of Fallon, her cries fell upon deaf ears. The CPR stopped. The nurses and doctors backed away from the little girl's bedside, and the room went silent. Chris rushed to her daughter, crying out and begging her to wake up, but she wouldn't. She was gone. A nearby nurse gently picked up Fallon and placed her into her mother's arms. Kristen Fridley held her daughter there as she stroked her hair and kissed her face until her own screams became mumbles, mutterings that still begged for her daughter Fallon to wake up. And as she sat there, she felt the baseball-sized knot on the back of Fallon's head.
At 1:18, they let me hold her, and I could just feel the back of her head, how swollen it was, and her body was purple. She didn't look like my Fallon, and I probably stayed there with her for an hour, just holding her. This is what I see every night before I go to bed.
Fallon Lynn Fridley died on December 10th, 2020, in a hospital with the people who loved her the most right by her side. And while Fallon may very well be in a better place, the ones that stood near as she took her last breath wanted answers. What really happened to that innocent little girl? An autopsy of Fallon Fridley shows the child sustained a skull fracture as well as multiple internal injuries, including lacerations to her liver, her spleen, and even her colon. A medical examiner ruled the death as homicide by blunt force trauma. According to babysitter Kirsty Flood, Fallon fell and hit her head on the slide while at a park on December 9th. When they returned home to apartments on Monterey Parkway in Sandy Springs, Kirsty said she noticed the little girl was acting a little strange, so she put her to bed. Then later she claims Fallon wouldn't wake up. EMS responded to a 911 call regarding the child being unresponsive. After arriving at the apartment and administering CPR, Fallon Fridley was transported to the hospital where she would sadly pass away the following day. That same day, Kirsty is brought in to be interviewed by police regarding the matter. What you're about to see has never been seen by the public. You're going to witness the police interviews of both Kirsty Flood and her boyfriend, Jeffrey Myers. The details that unfold during the following series of interrogations are hard to hear, but listening to them helps paint a picture to better understand how things transpired the final day that Fallon Fridley was in the care of Kirsty Flood.
I'm coming back here.
Because he's being ridiculous.
As Kirsty's temper rises, The detectives swap for questioning. This is likely so that the detective who was confrontational with Kirsty can leave the room and allow the other detective to de-escalate the conversation before Kirsty asks for a lawyer officially. The detective does this successfully by assuring Kirsty that they want to get things wrapped up shortly before leaving the room. The second detective wants Kirsty to give him her theory on what happened to Fallon.
What's your theory? That's what I'm asking you. How did this child sustain these injuries?
The only thing I could think of, like I told him, is falling.
At the playground?
No, not at the playground. Other than literally walking on the cement, holding Harper's hand while I'm carrying a car seat, walking out to my car, and like tripping because this baby doesn't cry, like I told him 1,000 times.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't cry. She just gets back up.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
So Harper pulling her, because Harper is 4, doesn't realize it, pulling her, she could fall.
Where is this at?
Boom! Morgan Falls.
Okay, fair enough.
The sidewalk walking, and I parked way over the side.
So this girl on the sidewalk?
Yes.
I got you. So she's fallen down onto the concrete there, and your 4-year-old doesn't know any better. She's just kind of...
Picking her back up and keeping it moving. That's what she
keeps
does.
falling down. Does this happen over and over, I guess?
Fallon falls all the time.
Okay. I mean, that's why I'm asking you. I wasn't there.
Her mom, ask her mom. That kid falls.
But that's what I'm asking you. So during that time, she kept falling down, kept falling down, kept falling?
It wasn't like she just repeatedly kept falling down.
Okay. Anything significant? Did she fall off a curb and hit her head? I mean, or anything like that you know?
Well, you fall on cement, then that could be.
Well, even kids have the innate ability to like kind of throw their arms and use it as what I'm saying is that's why I'm asking. I wasn't there, so.
If you slip on vinyl, there's concrete underneath it, right?
I understand.
Okay. So there's also
usually carports. I guess that's what I'm asking. Saying a parking lot doesn't even have a vinyl cover, so
I'm talking about inside my apartment.
Oh, very good. Okay. So
I'm talking about all the possibilities because you're asking me for all of them.
Well, I mean, but I'm being specific. You're saying that she had fallen down in the parking lot, and your kid, and that's okay. But that's what I'm asking. It's like, did she do so?
In the parking lot?
Yeah, at Morgan Falls. That's what I understood you to tell me.
In the side, okay. Anywhere we go, Harper wants to hold her hand.
Mm-hmm.
Yesterday we went to the playground. She wants to hold her hand.
Right.
They always hold hands. So she, will walk with her and hold her hand or whatever, and a lot of the times Fallon will fall.
Okay, that's fine.
A lot of the times. My daughter, but
and what I'm asking you is, like, again, because of the seriousness of her injuries today, when you were watching the kid, was there anything like, ooh, I mean, like, I'm probably a substandard dad, but, like, I'm scared enough of damn kids that I would watch them. I wouldn't have, like, alone time or anything. Meaning I would never shut my door because I'm afraid of what they do to harm themselves. So if they play around, and my 2 sons, and they do, and one goes running and clips a corner, I know I'm like, oh God, and sure enough, they get bruised up, and I get all that. But I'm saying,
okay,
anything
I
stand out to you?
To maybe not being the best.
I'm not saying
because
that,
of my son and me closing the door because of napping. But if she fell, then how am I supposed to know that?
How are you supposed to know if she falls?
Like, this is the thing. The baby doesn't cry. She doesn't cry.
Mm-hmm.
She's one of those kids that's just real quiet, which is another alarming sign. Very alarming sign from the home life.
Okay.
Very, very quiet, doesn't cry, doesn't say much. Just always smiling, always happy, the sweetest little thing ever.
Yeah.
So let's say she did fall, she wouldn't say anything. That's what I'm saying. Half the time she doesn't say anything. It's almost like she gets in trouble at home for maybe saying if she did. I don't know. But she doesn't say anything. She literally, my daughter is so dramatic. The whole world will hear about it.
All right.
This kid will fall and get up and keep it moving. This kid will get knocked over by my 60-pound pit and get up and keep it moving.
Yeah.
Harper gets knocked over by my pit and is a whole ordeal. You know what I mean?
they're looking into as far as they trying to figure out exactly what the injuries and where they were caused, obviously. I mean, you do understand that, right? We didn't just kind of wake up today looking to pick on you. We're trying to figure out how a 2-year-old who really can't speak for herself got injuries. By default, because that's what you do, you care for her throughout the day. That's why we're asking you this. It's not to anger you or to push you in a corner. Or
they told me I'm not, like, when you tell me that I might not get my keys back and I might not be able to get my kid, like, you're basically telling me...
Well, right now we're looking, we're having to investigate this case. We can't just, there's things we have to do before we do.
I have neighbors watching my children. You guys just did a search warrant on my house.
Yes, that's correct.
You didn't, and you didn't find anything to do anything.
Well, you gotta wait it out for a second. What I'm telling you is we have to explore all avenues. I'm not gonna lie to you.
What are you waiting on?
I'm gonna check here in just a second, and then I'll see if what the plans are moving forward. But we should be wrapping up here relatively soon.
Wait, I'm so confused. What do you mean you're gonna check?
Well, you check with the lead investigator, because I'm not the lead investigator, so I can't tell you exactly what's going on with this because but it's the best way I can describe it to you.
Do you know like how long?
I mean, again, I was going to go check with the lead investigator.
Okay.
Once Kirsty is alone, she calls her mother on the phone.
No, I'm not okay. They're trying to f me up. Yes. They're brain. They're trying to f my life up. They're trying to f my life up. I'm like, so can I go? Can I get my keys? Can I go get my kids? Can I go do this? He's like, we'll let you know in a minute. We'll let you know in a minute. I'm like, are you taking me to jail? Like, are you about to ruin my f***ing life? They don't know. She's in critical condition. The other cop told me she was dead.
While making another phone call, the detectives return to issue Kirsty a search warrant for her phone. She's also about to find out something that changes everything.
Hey, Kirsten. Are you actually on the phone with someone?
That I am.
Okay.
What is this?
This is a search warrant.
For what?
We're going to seize your phone.
What?
Yep.
Can't. What?
Yep.
This is a valid search warrant, so I'm going to judge. So we need to take your time.
So how
Here's the deal. I just called the doctor, and Fallon is dead. No lie. She's at the morgue right now.
Wow.
She's gone.
Wow.
Her injuries were that bad that they couldn't save her.
Did you just hear that? So they're seizing my phone. So, I guess, how long are they gonna have my phone for?
Probably as long as it takes for us to process it, which could be 24 hours.
Okay, so when I come back here and get it?
Yeah.
We'll contact you or listen back to you.
So I have Jeffrey's number. I can call him and y'all can come back and get it then.
I know. Alright, well, let me go ahead and, read over this paperwork before I give them my phone.
Let us have your copy of sheet.
Okay. Alright, so bye. actually have quite a few things to write down.
Well, here, let me, before you go.
I have a psychologist appointment tomorrow.
We're going to give you these things back, but we're not going to allow anything to be manipulated right now.
It's not going to be manipulated.
We're going to give it back to you right now, okay?
Kirsty's in her custody right now.
I have a psychologist appointment tomorrow. Do you not understand that?
We do understand that.
No, you don't. No, you don't.
Right now, our main board is investigating.
You just took it out of my phone. Out of my hand.
I did.
Okay.
Yes.
Search warrant now. We do.
Oh, aren't you lovely?
So, okay, we'll be right back with you, okay?
Kirsty has just been informed that the child she was looking after, who suffered horrific injuries while in her care, has passed away. This is a child she claims to love as one of her own. Yet when she receives the news, her main concern is that her phone is being seized. She shows no immediate humanity for the fact that Fallon has died. Kirsty says she wants to write a few things down from her phone, but detectives are concerned that she may attempt to destroy evidence, and now that the warrant has been signed by a judge and served, they can confiscate her device at any time without her consent. After Kirsty's phone was taken, she sent the following message to Chris.
I don't have a phone. They took it. But I love you and Fallon so much and really hope you know I would never hurt her. She's been with me for forever and has always been so happy, and we both know that. She's the sweetest little angel and never even cried. I love you, and I'm praying you find it in your heart to forgive me. And I know I can't say as much as I need to, but I would never hurt her. She was like a second daughter to me. When you're ready, please message me. In the meantime, I'm deactivating my Facebook. I love you.
Kirsty's first interview concluded shortly after this, and she was released pending further investigation into the death of Fallon Fridley. While Kirsty was being questioned, her boyfriend Jeffrey Myers was also questioned by the same detectives in another room. According to Kirsty, he and Fallon's stepfather Cameron worked together at a landscaping company on different crews where Jeff claims Cameron got him a job. Jeff also claims that he and Kirsty have been together since around 2014 and living together since 2017. Jeff admits to being in and out of jail due to addiction, but says that since the birth of his and Kirsty's 8-month-old son, he's been trying to do right by his family. In Jeff's interview, he claims he left work at around 5:30 a.m. on December 9th, and that when he got home from work at around 5 p.m., no one else was in the house. He then proceeded to take a shower like he normally would, and when he got out, Kirsty and the kids had arrived home, he suspects, somewhere in the realm of 6 or 6:30. Jeff is questioned about Fallon's demeanor at this time.
I didn't see her until I got out of the shower. I got out of the shower, and she had already put her to go to sleep. So I didn't see Fallon until she woke up to eat dinner. That's when I saw her.
So she was put to bed for like a nap?
Yeah, she was tired. I could hear her crying like she was trying to put her to sleep, go to nap. You know, when babies get tired, they start whining or whatever.
Yeah. Jeff continues on, claiming that he heard Kirsty putting Fallon down for a nap. Next, he played with the kids while Kirsty made macaroni and cheese. So far, according to Jeff, he had yet to have any interactions with Fallon.
So the first time you actually physically saw her was like at 8:30?
I saw her asleep. I saw her napping.
Yeah.
And then she cooked dinner, and then when she made dinner, it was like 8:30, she yelled, "Fallon, come eat." She yelled it a few times. Fallon came right out the room, came and gave me a hug, because that was the first time that I had seen her since I'd been home. Really seen her, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
She was fine. She seemed fine. She gave me a hug, sat down at the table, and we tried to get her to eat, and she wouldn't eat, man. I don't know. Kirsty says she deals with that all the time, about her not eating. Yeah. So, I don't want to know what goes on during the day when I'm not there, but...
So she came out of the room, ran out of the room like normal, everything seems fine?
I didn't think she was going to even hear her name be called, honestly, because she called it from the kitchen. And you saw what the kitchen is compared to the bedroom.
It's a little bit ways, yeah.
Right, so I didn't think she was here. She came right out, looked fine, gave me a hug. She made her plate. Both the kids, Harper and Fallon, Holden was already asleep. Sat down at the table. Harper started eating. And
Holden's your son, right?
Yes, sir.
You said he's 8 months?
Yes, sir.
And you said Harper's your daughter?
She's my stepdaughter, pretty much. It's her. She has a baby about now, but
you're being the dad?
Yeah. She's 4. We're about to be 4.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, they ate. Harper was eating, and she always likes to brag, saying, "Look, I'm eating all my food. I'm eating all my foods," because we're trying to get her to teach Fallon to do that. And Fallon wouldn't eat. We're like, "Fallon, you don't want to eat. You don't want to eat." We're sitting there, and she's just looking at us. She does that sometimes, you know what I mean? Like, she's a very quiet child.
On December 9, 2020, the Sandy Springs Police Department investigated the death of a child at 507 Monterey Parkway. The investigation found that 2-year-old Fallon Fridley was brutally beaten and subsequently died from massive trauma. Kirsty Flood and Jeffrey Myers were arrested for their roles in the child's death. On March 18, 2024, both Kirsty Flood and Jeffrey Myers pled guilty in the death of Fallon Fridley. The charges were as follows. Kirsty Flood, guilty to malice murder, felony murder, aggravated sexual battery, cruelty to children in the first degree, cruelty to children in the second degree, false statements, and tampering with evidence. She has been sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Jeffrey Myers, guilty to murder in the second degree. He has been sentenced 15 years to serve. This case has affected so many members of this department as so many had a hand in investigating and prosecuting the case. It has been a great success between our department and the Fulton County District Attorney's Office, specifically the Crimes Against Children Unit, with how well we work together. Through our diligence and hard work, we were able to bring closure and a semblance of peace to the family. This message from Fallon's mom, sending it to her beautiful angel in heaven.
The day you were born, I found peace in my soul. My walls broke down, the front that was ice cold. I didn't know what I was doing and didn't know what I was going to do. All I knew was that I had to do everything I could to take care of you. I left the abuser. I wanted more for you. I wanted to be an example and show you what a strong woman could do. I didn't feel strong at the time. I had to fake it until I made it. Miraculously, by loving you, I started to love myself too. Now that you're gone, some days I feel like I should give up the fight. Lock myself in my room and destroy myself out of spite. Then I remember the blessings that I have. The blessings that without you I don't think I would have had. It's bittersweet and some days it feels wrong to enjoy life without you. I only had you in my life until you were 2. Sometimes the grief feels old and some days so new. I've had to put myself back together, with broken pieces I made do. I was forced to come to terms with the fact that I won't see you in this life. I've reconciled with the fact that life will never feel quite right. It's okay though, baby girl, please rest in peace. I'll find a way to get to the other side in one piece.
Thank you for watching. I hope you liked this video. If you do, then please subscribe and like. You may also share it with family and friends. Please let me know, what do you think about this case? Is it fair judgment? Write your opinion in comment. I leave you in peace. Take care of yourself and your kids, please.